everyone, welcome to finale of an Avid Gamer over Dead Space Remake. So to go over the points in the reality, it still looks gorgeous, and it still scares the shit out of me like I was playing it for the first time. None of that changed up until the end. Granted, the scares are all jump scares and everything, but they still did it masterfully, so I ain't complaining. The sound effects continued to be amazing all the way through the ending. The level of detail is still astonishing. It continues to basically grow on everything that the original made. I mean, I still recognize some of the areas, and some of the areas I kind of recognize, but it feels like a brand new area. I mean, there is obviously some new areas, but it was just done so well that, like I said, I can barely notice some of the areas are new or old. It just all feels like a good part of the original Ishimura. And the enhanced story with Isaac being voiced still continues to wow me. They definitely expanded on his character and his motivations a lot more in this, and I do actually appreciate that. It's something that I was not really concerned with going in, because, I mean, from a non-voice protagonist, the only real way you can go is up. But, it still was a little concerning. The side quests continued to be great. They leaned into the newer story bits really well, and it even expanded on some of the, original lore that, not that it wasn't plainly stated, or that you couldn't read between the lines, but it's really nice to actually see some of that stuff be fleshed out a little bit more, and kind of retroactively make some points of 2 and 3 make a bit more sense. And the interconnected world is still fantastic. It was really nice, so it actually gives you the point of no return, that I so love in my games. And that gave me a good opportunity to go and clean up the few collectibles that I didn't have. And it just made it a lot easier being able to go back and forth and go through everything just being connected, and kind of taking shortcuts. It was just a really nice experience overall. Alright, on to the new stuff that I have specifically for this finale review. I didn't really care with how they did Kendra. They made her feel a little more sympathetic, and her goals seem a bit more muddled. Instead of being her loyal to EarthGov, she seems like she's doing something else. I mean, I know that she's not. I know that her goals in the remake are the same as the original, but I feel like Motive maybe given her too much character. I kind of liked how she was in the original, where she was a bit of an ice queen, and she didn't really have the sympathetic factor going on. And I mean, even by the end of the game, she was basically begging for Isaac's help after the hive mind whipped the shit out of her off of the escape shuttle, and it just feels out of character. And I don't know. I didn't really like how they did Daniels. It feels like they tried to make her too likable, and it was a tragic turn, instead of what she was before. She was an agent for EarthGov, wanting to take the marker for herself, or rather for EarthGov, so that they can do their experiments and stuff with it. But this time it kind of seemed like, oh no, we need to destroy the marker. It's caused too much pain. I mean, that's not exactly how it went down, but the feeling of the actress is kind of where that was coming from. And I'm not slighting the actress at all. She did a fantastic job playing Kendra. I just think that the direction was not as strong with her as it was with everyone else. And some of the animations feel a little bit weaker. The only one that ever stuck out in my mind was the shake-off animation, when the little bits of reanimated flesh are attached to you and slowly digging away at your health. Isaac's shake-off, I don't know, it feels it's hard to describe how it feels, because the original animation, and maybe it was because there was no, like, additional grunts with Isaac trying to peel them off. I can't really pinpoint down what exactly feels weaker about it. Maybe the movement feels weaker, but it's the same movement, so I'm really just thinking it's it not feeling like enough of a struggle when, by all rights, it should be very much a struggle. And the stomp isn't as responsive. The melee, the primary melee where you swing your arm, sometimes isn't, but I feel it more in the stomp, and I don't know if they tweaked that to make it to where you can't abuse the stomp as much as you could, but I remember in the original game you could chain down your stomps, like one after the other, whereas in this it sometimes feels like it's on an invisible cooldown or something. Because, when you're trying to conserve your ammo and stuff, you're just stomping, stomping, stomping. And I didn't really get that from here. So I'm not really sure why it's like that. I don't know if it's something they're going to fix in a future update, but it's just kind of how I feel coming off of the original. This is a small nitpick too, because it wasn't in the original, but it was in Dead Space 2, and I think Dead Space 3 as well. I don't remember there being a lot of dark areas in Dead Space 3, but in Dead Space 2, I specifically remember there being some rooms where there was no light in said room, and the room was lit up by your helmet. The lights that go on in your helmet, you could distinctively see the light that was coming through them, and it would help illuminate the room, whereas in here, it's just dark. The rooms are just dark, and you can illuminate it with your gun, but I do kind of miss how in Dead Space 2 they did the light. So that's just a really small nitpick, but it was something that I felt they could have done, especially with the, I believe it's called the Intensity Director. When you're going back and revisiting some of the other areas of the ship, like especially if you are trying to go back and hunt the rest of the collectibles that you missed like I did, sometimes the lights will completely shut off, and it's... Granted, I know it's supposed to be spooky, but there are some bits where a little extra light would be helpful, especially because the flashlight just really tightens your view, and that probably is going a little bit away from the survival horror and making it too easy, but I think it would work well for having some more situational awareness, but that could just be me. This one's not really a complaint or anything, it's just something I noticed. I did notice that, so I will say the game ran completely smooth the entire time I was playing, except for like a small handful of times in the last chapter, it stuttered and dipped. Probably because it's the last chapter and there is a lot going on. I did the plasma cutter only run, so it's not like I was using the flamethrower with a lot of effects or anything. It's definitely not a deal breaker. It is just something that I noticed. And I know a lot of actually every single thing that I said in the finale was kind of like a con, but those are just the small things that I noticed, and this is also coming from a hardcore Dead Space fan. So it might be a little more nitpicky than usual, especially a little more nitpicky than usual on my end. And I know I was nitpicky with Crisis Core and a little bit harsh with Crisis Core Remake, but as much as I love Crisis Core, Dead Space means more to me than Crisis Core. So there's that. But as much as it sounded like I was being negative and nitpicky for like the new stuff with the finale, everything that I said in the reality still holds true. This is still a fantastic game. It is a fantastic remake. This is... I had heard before I had completed it, because I'm actually recording this literally minutes after I've beaten it. The credits are actually still rolling. I had heard people say that this is on the level of Resident Evil 2 Remake. Now, I haven't played the original Resident Evil 2 as of recording this, but from what I hear, that's a pretty high bar and high praise. And as someone who was completely unsure about whether we needed a Dead Space remake, or whether it should be a remake or whether it should just be ported up, I am incredibly happy with how this remake turned out. The team at Motive, every one of you needs to give yourselves a pat on the back, because this is the gold standard for a remake to me. The Ishimura is just as I remember it in most places. I don't remember every single room of the Ishimura going through it, but going through them in the remake definitely feels like going through the original, but enhanced. And then the new additions that they put in here, you know, it didn't take away, it didn't really retcon anything. It just enhanced the story that was already there, which is, it's so good. This is my gold standard for a remake, and I will be singing the praises of Dead Space Remake until the day I die. I was so pleasantly surprised by how well this remake turned out, and I am astounded. Any doubts I had about EA and Motive remaking this, completely gone. EA actually kind of seems to be learning their lesson now, and letting things actually, like, develop as they're supposed to, instead of rushing stuff out. So, while I am still torn on the idea of Dead Space 2 and 3 remake, potentially Extraction, whatever the new route is going to be for this, I'm at least happy that we got Dead Space Remake, and there is a part of me that's like, come on, let's do the rest of the trilogy, do Extraction, maybe somehow tie in Ignition to 2. I doubt they're going to, because it seems like most people didn't like Ignition. I thought it was a fun little side game. But I love Dead Space Remake. I'm very, very happy with how it turned out, and I honestly can't wait to see what's next. Motive did an incredible job, and I honestly look forward to see what else they have. That's going to be it for this review, and I'll see you in the next one. Try not to die out there.